Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're doing exactly what your tired brain has been asking for all day. Slow, simple Minecraft and soft Reddit stories, all lined up to help you drift off to sleep. Story 1. A sleep-deprived spark of genius. So there I was, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling while the last echoes of the party finally died down. And my brain just refused to power off. You know that weird floaty state where you're too tired to move but too annoyed to sleep? That was me. Glowing phone screen, the only light in the apartment. I started doing what a lot of us do on nights like that, mindless scrolling. No big plan, no grand scheme, just thumb, screen, repeat. Somewhere between a cat video and a recipe I was never going to cook, I stumbled onto this old post about brown noise and how certain sound frequencies can actually help you drift off to sleep. And that's when something in my very tired brain sat up and went, frequencies. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I remembered this random fact from a podcast about how low sounds travel differently through walls and floors. High music, like lyrics and melody, gets muffled. But bass? Those low vibrations love to sneak under doors, through ceilings, across the whole building like they paid rent. It's why I could hear the neighbor's subwoofer, but not the actual song. That little memory just kind of clicked into place, right next to the idea of brown noise. I realized this wasn't just about loud or quiet. It was about which parts of the sound actually made it into my bedroom. So, still wrapped in my blanket, I turned the brightness way down, grabbed your favorite blanket energy for myself, and quietly started searching. Nothing wild, nothing illegal. Just options. I looked up small speakers and devices that specialized in low, steady vibrations. I found apps that could schedule sound to start and stop at very specific times, almost like gentle alarms. There were even little under-desk vibration pads people used in offices so they could feel notifications without hearing them. That one made me smile. Imagine using something designed for quiet productivity as the backbone of a cozy revenge plan. And before you worry, this was never about hurting anyone or turning into the villain of my own story. I didn't want to damage the building or blast anyone out of bed. I just wanted a way to nudge my neighbor into understanding what it felt like to have your sleep constantly poked at by invisible vibrations you couldn't quite escape. A tiny targeted inconvenience, instead of another screaming match in the hallway. Somewhere between product reviews and a forum thread about sound masking, the outline of a plan started to form. I could use timing instead of volume, subtlety instead of confrontation. If they loved late-night music so much, maybe I could let their own habits loop back around on them, like an echo. Welcome back to the channel energy in my head, I thought. Let's dive into this properly tomorrow. With the right setup, the right timing, and just a pinch of patience, I might finally turn all those sleepless nights into that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. In the next part, I'll tell you exactly what I bought, how I set it up, and how one tiny device quietly changed the entire vibe of our building. 2806. Story 1. Building the perfectly petty sleep trap. So the next morning, with that little narrator voice in my head going, "Welcome back to the channel," I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started hunting for the gentlest revenge device I could find. Just something that could turn all that late-night music and party energy back into a soft little echo against his own wall. After a bit of scrolling, I settled on a tiny, flat, bone conduction speaker, the kind that turns whatever it's pressed against into the actual speaker. No huge subwoofers, no obvious thumping, just focused vibrations that travel through solid surfaces. Perfect for a shared apartment wall. The reviews even mentioned people using it for stealth listening, which, I'll be honest, felt both mischievous and oddly cozy. I added it to my cart, grabbed a cheap plug-in timer, and hit order. 2 days for delivery. In those 2 days, I treated my room like a little sleep lab. While my Minecraft world on the screen stayed slow and peaceful, just mining and placing blocks on repeat, I played different sounds on my phone at barely there volume. Low hums. Soft, irregular tapping. A gentle, offbeat rhythm that never quite lined up. Just annoying enough to notice, but not loud enough to scream. There's a speaker in the wall. I'd lie there at night, lights low, letting the game sounds sit around that sleep-friendly whisper level. And I'd ask myself, if I heard this through a wall at 2 a.m., would it keep me awake without being obvious? When I found that sweet spot, I saved the file. That was going to be my lullaby of petty justice. When the package finally arrived, I took my time. First, I pulled my bed a few inches away from the shared wall and added an extra layer of padding on my side. Folded blanket, old foam topper, even a body pillow to buffer any stray vibrations. I wanted my side comfortable and quiet. His side could enjoy the show. Then came the setup. I stuck the little speaker against the wall right behind my nightstand, feeding the wire down the back so it disappeared into the shadows. I taped the cable neatly along the baseboard, smoothing the tape with my thumb so there were no loose edges to catch the light. The timer went into the outlet, the speaker plugged into the timer, and I set it to turn on only during his favorite chaos window, 1:30 to 4 a.m. On my phone, I set the revenge track to loop, lowered the volume to that perfect, barely there level, and turned on Do Not Disturb so I could actually sleep through my own plan. No calls, no notifications, just cozy Minecraft sounds and the soft promise of karma humming through the wall. And the whole time I kept reassuring myself, I'm not breaking anything. I'm not damaging the building. I'm not even matching his volume. I'm just letting him meet a quieter version of his own behavior. A gentle nudge from the universe, delivered via Amazon Prime. In the next part, I'll tell you about the very first night I turned it on, and how fast those tiny vibrations turned his endless party nights into something very, very different. 3140, Story 1, the first night of subtle payback. So that brings us to the very first trial run. The night I decided that if he was going to host a never-ending party in my apartment building, he could also host a tiny, invisible science experiment, and this time, I'd be the one getting some actual sleep out of it. I checked my little timer twice, the way you double-check your alarm before an important morning. I set it for just after his usual crash time, around 3:30 in the morning. That sweet spot when the music finally dies, the last drunk laugh fades down the hallway, and the building should be peaceful. On my side of the wall, everything was already quiet. No thumping bass. No shouted conversations. Just a cozy, low Minecraft soundtrack playing softly while I watched the minutes tick by. Welcome back to the channel, by the way, if you're listening to this while you drift. Grab your favorite blanket, get comfortable, and just picture this. I'm lying there in the dark, my room finally still while this tiny device waits patiently to send the gentlest little vibrations through the wall. When the timer clicked on, I barely heard anything. That was the whole point. On my side, it sounded like the faintest hum, almost like a fridge in the next room. Nothing sharp, nothing that would jolt you awake. Just a low, slightly irritating sound that you only notice if you're trying to fall asleep in the exact spot it's aimed at. For the first time in weeks, my space felt calm. I could actually hear the soft game sounds on my headphones, that repetitive mining rhythm that can help you drift off to sleep. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, the real show started. I heard him stir. A confused shuffle, the creak of his bed, then footsteps. He turned his TV down, then off. I heard the little click through the wall. For a moment, the building was perfectly silent. Then the device pulsed again, just enough to buzz his side of the wall like an itch he couldn't quite scratch. He walked to the window, slid it open, then closed it again. The fridge door opened, cabinets. A sigh. You could tell he was bothered, but he had no idea why. The music was off. The party was over. The apartment should have been peaceful, and yet there was this tiny, nagging annoyance he couldn't locate. Every time he settled back into bed, the sound and vibrations picked up again, soft but steady, like a distant phone on an endless notification loop. On my side, I just lay there in the dark, feeling the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served in the quietest way possible. My breathing slowed. My shoulders finally unclenched. As he paced one last time and then gave up, I drifted off with a small, sleepy smile, already planning how to fine-tune the timing over the next few nights. Because as effective as that first test was, the real fun started when he tried to fight back. 3503. Story 1, Weeks of Quiet Karma, and a Moving Truck, and wow, did he ever try. Week 1 was pure stubbornness. Some nights the music blasted until 2 or 3 in the morning, bass vibrations rolling through my apartment like a budget nightclub. On those nights, I let him burn himself out. I just logged the times, played a little more cozy Minecraft, and waited. Other nights, when he finally shut everything down and stumbled to bed, that's when my little device quietly hummed to life, sending a gentle, annoying buzz through his floor right as his head hit the pillow. It wasn't loud, it was just persistent. Like a dripping faucet you can't unhear once you've noticed it. I'd turn it off after a short while and let the silence settle again, helping my own brain drift into that soft, sleepy rhythm. You could almost feel the balance in the building start to shift. By week 2, I started seeing him in the hallway more, The guy who used to bounce past me in full party mode now shuffled to the elevator in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes. He'd rub the bridge of his nose and mutter to a friend on the phone about weird noises in this place and how he couldn't get a full night of sleep. I'd just nod politely, say good morning, and head back to my cozy little world, feeling that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. He called maintenance at least twice. I know because I heard him in the hall, half whispering, half complaining, about something in the pipes or vents, making sounds at random hours. A couple days later, a maintenance guy knocked on my door, asking if I'd heard anything strange at night. I kept my face perfectly calm and said, "Just the usual party noise from upstairs." He gave me a knowing look and scribbled something on his clipboard. Week 3, the pattern really started to work on him. The parties didn't stop all at once, they just got smaller, shorter, less loud. A few people instead of a crowd. The music would cut off earlier, and on those nights the device would give him a gentle reminder that late nights equaled bad sleep. It was like training a very inconsiderate, very hungover dog. By week 4, I overheard the breaking point. I was locking my door when he stormed down the hall, phone pressed to his ear, hissing, "I hate this building. I can't sleep. The neighbors complain about everything. Maintenance won't fix anything. I'm done." He jabbed the elevator button 3 times like that would do anything. A couple weeks later, I came home from work and there it was, a moving truck parked right in front of our building. His door was propped open, boxes stacked in the hallway. He looked even more exhausted up close, like the combination of his own noise and the mysterious nights of bad rest had finally worn him down. That weekend was my first truly quiet one since he'd moved in. No bass, no yelling in the stairwell, just soft building sounds, distant city hum, and my own peaceful Minecraft music in the background. I actually laughed a little when the landlord sent out an email about taking noise complaints very seriously now that he was leaving. I sat on my couch, lights low, feeling my shoulders finally stay relaxed for an entire night, and thought about how the only time anyone really acted was when the noisy tenant decided the building wasn't comfortable for him anymore. The irony was almost as soothing as the silence. I turned off the device for good. Let the quiet wrap around me and let myself drift off to sleep in an apartment that finally felt like mine again. And that's the thing about slow, patient revenge. Sometimes you don't have to raise your voice at all. You just have to wait and let people trip over the consequences of their own choices. Now that our first story has settled into that peaceful ending, let's dive into the next one, where the noise isn't coming from a party upstairs, but from a boss who can't stop taking credit for other people's work. 3942. Story 1, Soft Reflection and Minecraft Reset. So as we leave that upstairs circus behind, there's something really gentle about how it all wrapped up. The neighbor who stole sleep ended up losing their own, and our narrator never had to slam a door, blast music back, or become the loud one in the apartment. They just stayed steady, kept their records, and let the system do exactly what it was supposed to do. It's a pretty perfect bit of poetic justice. All those late-night party vibrations, all those thumps and shouts that shook the ceiling, slowly turned into a paper trail. And in the end, the person who thought they were untouchable discovered that they'd basically built their own alarm clock of consequences. No screaming match. No dramatic hallway showdowns. Just quiet persistence and a very sleepy lesson learned. The part that always makes me shake my head a little is the landlord. When the quiet tenant begged for help, suddenly the building was within normal limits, the walls were thin, and there was nothing anyone could do. But the second the problematic neighbor started complaining about the mysterious morning noise, suddenly there were building issues to investigate, policies to enforce, urgent meetings to schedule. Funny how the rules only seem to matter when the loudest person is uncomfortable. I know. Revenge stories for bedtime sounds counterintuitive, but this is why they work. Our narrator didn't want suffering. They wanted peace. They wanted to sleep. And instead of sinking to the same level, they chose the slow path. Documentation, patience, and a calm exterior that never cracked. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is just letting people trip over the mess they made, while you quietly watch from a comfortable distance with that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. While all of that was unfolding, our Minecraft world has been doing its own quiet transformation. If you glance back at the screen, the tunnel we started earlier has stretched out into this long, neat hallway with clean lines and those soft, repeating patterns that help you drift off to sleep. The pickaxe rhythm is low and steady, like a gentle metronome for your brain. I've even carved out a little room off to the side, a cozy underground nook just waiting for some bookshelves, a bed, maybe a tiny music corner. Go ahead and grab your favorite blanket if you haven't already. Take a slow breath in, feel your shoulders drop, and let the simple blocks and soft sounds wrap around you. The lighting down here is dim and safe. No surprises, just predictable mining and placing blocks over and over until your thoughts get a little blurry around the edges. Pattern interrupt for your brain. Imagine, just for a second, that this tunnel is your day, and every annoying noise, every petty person, is way back at the entrance, getting farther and farther behind you with each step. Down here, it's just you, the soft glow of torches, and these calm stories to keep you company. Welcome back to the channel if you're still awake with me. Settle in, adjust your pillows, make sure you're comfortable, because our next story shifts the noise from the ceiling to the office. This time, the upstairs neighbor is a boss who can't stop taking credit for other people's work. And the revenge is all about emails, receipts, and a very satisfying meeting. Let's dive into that one next. 43 to 29. Story 2. The manager who forgot what respect means. Hook and setup. Sometimes the most devastating revenge on a power-tripping boss isn't yelling or quitting in a blaze of glory. It's staying calm, staying competent, and quietly letting reality expose who actually keeps the place running. Welcome back to the channel if you're still with me in this cozy little Minecraft world. The pickaxe is swinging, the blocks are breaking in that soft, repetitive rhythm, and this next story is one a lot of you have probably lived some version of. Grab your favorite blanket, let the game sounds be that low, gentle background music, and let's dive into a workplace that looks ordinary on the surface, but feels like a slow-motion stress dream when you're the one on the schedule. In this story, I'm working a modest retail job in a strip mall clothing store. Not glamorous, not terrible. Just a job. The kind of place with fluorescent lights that hum, a playlist that loops every 2 hours, and those weird late-night vibrations from the air conditioner rattling the ceiling tiles. I'm part-time on paper, but somehow I'm always the one closing late and opening early, like clockwork. My manager, we'll call her Patricia 2.0, has this talent for making everything feel like my fault, while also acting like she's the hero of the store. She schedules me for a close that ends at 11 p.m., then an open at 7 a.m., and says it with a smile like she's offering me a party invite. If I come in a minute past my shift start, she raises her voice just enough so customers can hear. Some people don't respect the schedule. But when I stay late folding, cleaning the fitting rooms, and doing recovery so the place doesn't look like a tornado hit an apartment closet, that extra time magically disappears from the time card. When I suggest a new way to organize the clearance rack, or a simple system to track online pickups, she loves the ideas, as long as she can present them to upper management as initiatives I've been working on with my team. I'm the one doing the work, but she's the one getting the email shoutouts. It's that subtle, everyday credit theft that wears you down more than one big blow-up ever could. Emotionally, it's like this quiet drip of anxiety. I'd sit in my car before a shift, engine off, just listening to the night sounds in the parking lot, trying to calm my breathing. I wasn't angry enough to storm out. I was just tired. Drained, but also very, very observant. I knew the systems. I knew which regulars only shopped when I was there. I knew where everything was when Patricia didn't. While she floated around managing, I was the one fixing the register issues, handling returns and training new hires, because somehow I was always on the same shifts as the newbies. And that's the part Patricia never really clocked. The store didn't run smoothly because of her inspirational speeches. It ran because I quietly made sure the basics were done right. If I was sick, the floor fell apart. When I took a rare weekend off, sales dipped and complaints went up. Upper management started noticing patterns in the numbers, even if they didn't say anything yet. So while Patricia thought she was the star of the show, the reality was more like this Minecraft world you're watching. Slow, predictable patterns revealing who's actually mining the resources and who's just standing there taking screenshots. And in a place that lives and dies on metrics and emails, that kind of quiet competence can eventually give you the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. We're going to stay in this cozy office nightmare for a bit because the moment that power dynamic finally flips is incredibly satisfying. And it all starts with one very normal-looking schedule and a few harmless emails. 47. 46. Story 2. Pushed too far by one unfair demand. So we've got our neat little folder of emails and screenshots, and on the surface everything still looks calm and professional. The Minecraft world is still cozy, we're still just placing blocks and listening to soft game music. But under the surface, the vibrations in this office story are starting to get a little unstable. Welcome back to the channel, by the way, if you're just settling in now. Let's dive into the moment everything really snapped. Up to this point, I'd been the reliable one. I trained every new hire Patricia threw at me, walking them through the clunky software while other people disappeared for smoke breaks. I fixed inventory mistakes that magically appeared on days she was working from home. I stayed late to close properly so the morning crew didn't walk into an absolute disaster. No extra pay. No thank you, just more work quietly stacked on my plate. 1 week, after 6 straight days, I finally had a single day off on the schedule. I remember seeing it and feeling this weird, fragile kind of relief, the way you feel when your apartment is finally quiet after a loud party next door. I planned to actually sleep, maybe put on some relaxing music, maybe even let a long Minecraft video help me drift off to sleep without thinking about emails or metrics. The night before that precious day off, my phone buzzed. It was Patricia. She didn't ask if I could cover. She told me I would. Someone had called out. She'd already fixed the schedule, and if I was serious about my job, I'd be there at 7 a.m. I replied calmly that I couldn't. I had plans, I was exhausted, and it was my only day off. She shot back a message saying, "If you're not a team player, maybe this isn't the place for you." The next day at work, she escalated. In front of half the team, she waved the printed schedule and said, "Because someone decided their personal life was more important than this department, we were short-staffed yesterday." Then she looked straight at me. A coworker quietly mouthed, "That's not fair," but nobody said anything out loud. Later that week, a deposit went missing. I hadn't even touched it. Patricia had closed that night. But in the morning huddle, she announced, "We're investigating a serious mistake that happened on Bond's shift. This kind of negligence could cost us our bonuses." I stood there, heat creeping up my neck, knowing full well the cameras and logs would show the truth, and also knowing she was counting on everyone being too tired to check. I went home that night beyond exhausted, the kind of tired where even Minecraft feels like too much effort. I lay there in the dark, listening to the low hum of the night outside. And it finally clicked. No amount of quiet hard work was ever going to earn basic respect from this boss. She needed a scapegoat, not a star. And if she wasn't going to appreciate my presence, I realized, then maybe the only way to get that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served was to make my absence impossible to ignore. The way that actually played out is where this cozy little story stops being hypothetical and turns into very real, very documented revenge. 5129, Story 2, Planning the Polite, Perfect Exit. And if you're watching the little Minecraft character calmly mining away while we talk about this, just let those cozy block sounds help you drift off to sleep while we get into the quiet part of the revenge. Because once I decided my absence needed to be impossible to ignore, the very first thing I did was start writing everything down. I treated it like a slow, methodical strip mine. Every time Patricia changed the schedule last minute, I took a screenshot. When she forgot to copy me on an email and then blamed me for not knowing something, I asked her to repeat the instructions in writing and saved it. I kept a little notebook in my bag, and on breaks I'd jot down dates, times, who said what. Nothing dramatic, just layers of documentation, like placing neat rows of blocks in a quiet underground tunnel. During those same breaks, while the store music hummed in the background and the night shift dragged on, I quietly updated my resume. No big "I'm out of here" speeches, just a calm tab open on my phone. I listed every project she'd taken credit for, every system I'd built to keep things running. Then I started sending out applications, a few each day. Slow, steady, like walking across a flat Minecraft plane under a calm, pixelated sky. At the same time, I reached out to HR and higher management, but I kept my tone neutral and factual. No rants, no all caps. I laid out a timeline. Here are the schedule changes. Here are the emails. Here's where I raised concerns and got brushed off. I attached files. I asked for clarification on policies instead of accusing anyone of anything. It was oddly comfortable because I knew the receipts spoke louder than I ever could. Here's the little pattern interrupt. I wasn't actually planning to win with HR. I was planning to be undeniable. If they helped, great. If they ignored it, that silence would be its own kind of evidence for later. Meanwhile, I made sure my escape hatch was ready. After a few weeks, interviews started coming in. I took them on my days off, sitting in my apartment with my phone propped up, Minecraft music quietly playing in the background to keep my nerves down. When the offer finally landed, a better title, better pay, and a manager who sounded like an actual human being. I waited until the paperwork was signed before making a single move that could anger Patricia. Then I turned my attention back to the team. If I was going to leave, I wanted the truth about my replaceability to be crystal clear. I started training coworkers thoroughly, walking them through the systems I'd built, documenting every process. I made shared folders, checklists, step-by-step guides. Anytime someone said, "Wait, you handle that too?" I'd smile and say, "Yeah, but let me show you how it works." I wasn't bragging. I was just quietly pulling back the curtain on how much invisible work I'd been doing. The more I taught, the more people realized how much Patricia had been leaning on me. Little comments started floating around. "I didn't know you were the one who fixed the inventory mess," or "I thought Patricia set up this schedule template." Those tiny realizations were like gentle vibrations spreading through the team, soft but impossible to completely ignore. Once everything was documented, my new job was locked in, and my coworkers were as prepared as they could be. All that was left was timing. I picked my exit like you pick the perfect spot for a big Minecraft build. Deliberately. Our busiest weekend of the quarter was coming up, a huge sale event Patricia had bragged about running single-handedly. That's the day I chose to hand in my notice. I didn't yell, I didn't cause a scene. I walked into her office with my resignation letter, copied HR, and gave exactly the required notice, knowing that every chaotic shift, every frantic call, every where's OP during that sale would land squarely on her shoulders. With my neatly organized systems and emails showing exactly who had really been holding everything together. And that's where the real fun begins. Because the moment my notice hit the system, all those cozy little preparations started paying off in ways Patricia never saw coming. 56:20. Story 2. The day everything quietly falls apart. So welcome back to the channel. And imagine the Minecraft camera just slowly gliding over a quiet little village as all those cozy preparations I told you about finally click into place. It's the big day. The air in my real-life apartment felt weirdly still, the way a Minecraft night feels right before the music fades in and the stars come out. I got to work early, calm, almost sleepy. I didn't storm in, I didn't make a scene. I walked right past Patricia's office with a polite nod and went straight to upper management. Printed resignation in hand, 2 copies actually, because we like documentation. I handed it to the regional manager, thanked them for the opportunity, and watched their eyebrows climb when they saw my end date was that day. They asked if everything was okay, and I just gently pointed to my email trail, my performance reviews, and the fact that Patricia had been restructuring me into the ground. All very soft-spoken. Very neat, very bedtime story energy. Then I went downstairs, clocked in, and started my last shift like it was any other slow mining session meant to help you drift off to sleep. Patricia's first reaction was almost funny. She waved the news away like a fly at a summer party. "You'll be back," she said. "People say they're quitting all the time. Besides, anyone can do what you do." You could practically hear the overconfident boss music playing in her head instead of the gentle store hum. For the first hour, it looked like she might be right. Things seemed normal, but then the tiny cracks started to show. A vendor called about a standing order only I knew how to adjust. No one else could find the updated inventory sheet because it lived in the shared drive folder I'd created, labeled in a way only I understood. A customer asked about a special return exception that required a very specific sequence of approvals. Patricia shrugged and gave the wrong answer. Individually, each issue was small. Together, they started to pile up like dropped blocks. Lines got longer. The phones kept ringing. Returns needed manager overrides. The new hire froze at the register because the simple process Patricia bragged about actually had 6 hidden steps I'd always handled quietly in the background. Upstairs, my resignation email and that neat little packet of documentation were doing their own kind of slow, cozy damage. Regional started calling down with questions. Why were inventory variances tied to Patricia's decisions but fixed in my reports? Why did every positive customer comment mention me but every complaint mention management? By mid-afternoon, Patricia was literally jogging between departments, snapping at people, trying to plug leaks she didn't understand. I just kept doing my job, steady and calm, like strip mining in a straight line while the soft game music plays. I answered questions when asked, but I didn't rush in to save her like I used to. The vibrations of her stress were almost visible. When my shift ended, I logged out on time. No staying late. No heroic last-minute fixes. I turned in my badge, said a polite goodbye, and walked out into the night feeling strangely light, like stepping out of a cave into a moonlit Minecraft field. Behind me, Patricia was still scrambling, phone pressed to her ear. Upper management finally seeing the chaos with no one quietly smoothing it over. And the best part? They hadn't even connected all the dots yet, but they were about to. 60. 14. 2 aftermath, karma, and a better job, so. A couple of weeks after that night, when the dust had settled and I was getting used to my new routine, I decided to do a slow drive past the old store after work. You know that feeling when you're in a cozy new apartment but you're still a little curious about the place you left behind? That was me, just kind of cruising by, letting the evening music on the radio blend with the quiet vibrations of the car. From the parking lot, I could already tell something was off. The line at the registers was snaking almost to the door. People looked tired, annoyed, shifting from foot to foot, no familiar calm, no comfortable hum of things running smoothly. Just chaos. I didn't go in. I just watched for a minute and then headed home to my new, much more peaceful job. A few days later, one of my old coworkers called me. We did that thing where you say, "How's it going?" but you really mean, "So how bad is it?" She laughed and said, "Oh, you have no idea. Long lines all day. Orders backed up. Complaints piling in. Patricia trying to be everywhere at once and failing miserably because, surprise, she actually had to manage now instead of hiding behind my work." This went on long enough that upper management finally couldn't ignore it. They started pulling reports, schedules, performance metrics, customer complaints, all that fun corporate stuff. And when you look at that data without me quietly patching everything, a pattern shows up pretty fast. They saw that the weeks where I'd been in charge of the floor ran like a calm Minecraft mining session, just steady, predictable blocks. After I left, it was like trying to speedrun the Ender Dragon with a wooden sword. They realized Patricia had been misusing staff for ages, yanking people from critical positions just to make her numbers look good on paper, and then leaning on me to fix the mess. All those glowing reviews she'd taken credit for suddenly looked a lot less like her genius and a lot more like my unpaid overtime. I heard through the grapevine that she got reassigned, which is corporate speak for a demotion and a quiet shuffle to a place where she couldn't do as much damage. Some people said she eventually left the company altogether. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new job, where my manager actually thanked me for organizing things and let me leave on time. My skills weren't a crutch anymore. They were respected. And that's the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served that I really love in these stories. I never had to yell. I never had to make a scene. I just stopped holding up the ceiling, and her own behavior finally caught up with her. If you've ever had a boss like that, you know how tempting it is to go nuclear. But sometimes the most peaceful revenge is simply leaving well prepared, letting your work speak for itself, and watching from a safe distance as the truth slowly comes into focus. So, welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining us mid-story, grab your favorite blanket, let's dive into our next tale, and let this cozy little arc help you drift off to sleep as we move into an even deeper layer of bedtime revenge. 63:58. Minecraft interlude: farming, breathing, and letting go. Move in, an even deeper layer of bedtime revenge. For a minute though, let's step out of the drama and back into the game. We climb the last few steps of the mine and walk out into a quiet field. And it's like the whole night takes a deep breath with us. The sky is that soft Minecraft twilight, the kind that looks like the day forgot to fully turn the lights off, and there's a light rain starting, just enough to add those gentle crackling vibrations of drops on grass and roofs. Off to the side, the village is settling down. No music, no party, just cozy little apartments of pixel villagers shuffling inside, doors clicking shut one by one. The torches glow a warm orange, and you can almost feel the air cool off as the sun disappears. This is the part of the night where the game stops trying to impress you and just exists. Predictable. We wander over to the farm, and I start replanting the wheat in neat little rows. One block, one seed, one slow breath. As I place each seed, I want you to gently breathe in, and as I move to the next row, let that breath out. In, place, out, step. The pattern is simple, on purpose, like a metronome for your brain that's been scrolling all day and finally gets permission to slow down. I'll harvest a line of carrots, listen to that soft popping sound, and then tuck fresh ones back into the soil. Maybe we toss a few to the cows and sheep, watch them bunch together at the fence like a tiny blocky crowd at a very low-energy party. No drama, no revenge yet, just animals munching away while the rain keeps tapping out its sleepy rhythm in the background. Then we head inside and make our little base even cozier. I add a couple of beds, some lanterns hanging from the ceiling, and a stack of bookshelves along the wall, like this is the quiet reading room of our Minecraft apartment. The room glows just enough to feel safe, but not so bright that it wakes you back up. As I place each lantern, you can match it with another slow breath, letting your shoulders loosen a bit more every time the light settles into place. If you're starting to feel drowsy right now, that's perfect. You do not have to stay awake for every single detail of these stories. You can let them blur at the edges, like when you're half listening to a friend talk on a long late-night call and your brain just decides, we're done for tonight. I'll keep walking these paths and tending these fields while you drift. And when you're ready, we'll step back into the stories. The next one takes us into a shared living space with rules, expectations, and one person who thinks they're above all of it. Think less cozy village and more small-town secret simmering behind a very polite smile. For now, though, we'll let the rain, the crops, and the quiet footsteps on pixel grass help you drift off to sleep. 6727. Story 3. The Roommate Who Never Did the Dishes. Hook and setup, so as our little Minecraft world keeps ticking along in the background, with those soft blocky vibrations and gentle game music, let's shift into something a lot smaller than evil landlords or nightmare bosses. This one starts with a single sink, a single plate, and one tiny mountain of dirty dishes that somehow turned into the most quiet, perfectly measured payback. Welcome back to the channel if you've drifted in mid-video, and if you're already half asleep, don't worry, this one's low stakes and cozy. Think less courtroom drama and more passive-aggressive sponge warfare. Grab your favorite blanket, watch the pixels blur a little, and let's dive into our next story. In this one, I'm living in a small, slightly too expensive apartment with a roommate I'll call Jake. It's one of those places where the kitchen is basically a hallway pretending to be a room. The sink is small, the counter space is smaller, and if you leave more than a couple plates out, it immediately looks like we just hosted a chaotic dinner party for 12. When we first moved in, we agreed on a simple system. We both wash our dishes the same day we use them. Nothing fancy, no chore wheel carved into stone tablets. Just, you cook, you clean your stuff. But Jake had a favorite word. Later. He'd make eggs in the morning, stack the pan and spatula in the sink, and say, I'll get it later. He'd reheat pasta at night, leave the pot soaking in mysterious orange water, and call out, don't worry, I'll do it later. Spoiler, later never came. Days would go by, the water would evaporate, and I'd come home from a long day, dreaming of a calm night, only to be greeted by a leaning tower of crusted plates and a smell that did not match the cozy music I had playing. There's a special kind of sinking feeling when you open your apartment door, already tired, maybe ready to cook something simple, and the first thing you see is a sink so full you can't even turn on the tap without dislodging a fork avalanche. It's not a life-ending crisis, but it does chip away at that comfortable end-of-the-night peace. I didn't jump straight to revenge. I tried being reasonable. I printed out a cute little chore chart with our names on it, color-coded and everything, and stuck it to the fridge. I brought it up gently between bites of takeout. Hey, could you make sure to get your dishes tonight? The sink fills up really fast. I even offered trades. If you really hate washing, I can do dishes this week if you take trash and floors. Every time he'd smile, nod, and say some variation of, yeah, I'll handle it later, like later was a magical spell that cleaned ceramic. After a while, the pattern became almost funny in a mildly ironic way. The more I tried to make it easy, the more elaborate the excuses got. He was tired. He was late. He was going to do them right after this one episode, this one game, this one call. And that's where the quiet revenge started to take shape. Nothing loud, nothing cruel, just a calm little plan that would let his later finally catch up to him and give us that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served dish by dish. In the next part, I'll walk you through exactly how that played out, while we keep wandering through this sleepy Minecraft night and help you drift off to sleep. 7123, Story 3, When Later. Never comes, so there I am in my cozy little Minecraft village, just strip mining under the soft game music, and in real life I'm staring at a very different kind of mine. The kitchen sink. You know the one. Piled high, plates stacked like mismatched towers, forks doing this weird modern art thing. Every single dish in that apartment, just waiting. I'd come home from a long day, wanting nothing more than to cook something simple, zone out, and let these stories help you drift off to sleep along with me. Instead, I'd have to start the night with a full cleanup. I'd roll up my sleeves, wash an entire sink of dishes alone, wipe the counters, reset everything. The kitchen would finally look peaceful, almost like a freshly cleared Minecraft chunk. Quiet, orderly. And then, like clockwork, my roommate would wander in. He'd open the fridge, grab something, make direct eye contact with the empty sink I had just scrubbed, and then casually drop his dirty plate and cup right back into it. No rinse. No, hey, thanks for cleaning. Just clink, walk away, bedroom door shuts, music on. Later, right? On special nights, it got worse. He'd decide to play host. Friends over, loud party vibrations through our thin apartment walls, pots and pans clanging like an offbeat drum circle. He'd cook these huge meals, every burner going, sauce splattering up the backsplash, cutting boards buried under vegetable bits. Laughter, drinks, music, the whole thing. And when the party ended, they'd all vanish into his room or out the door, leaving the kitchen looking like a raid had just swept through. I'd wake up the next morning, shuffle out in my socks, and there it was. A battlefield. Greasy pans, crusted baking trays, food welded to plates. The smell would hit before the light switch did. Meanwhile, in Minecraft, I'm calmly harvesting wheat, listening to soft footsteps and distant water, trying to keep things comfortable for you while you drift towards sleep. The contrast was impressive. At first, I tried hopeful patience. Gentle reminders. Hey, could you grab your dishes tonight? Maybe we can each clean up after we cook? He'd nod, toss out another, I'll do it later, and nothing changed. Days went by, then weeks. The pattern stayed exactly the same. My hope slowly thinned out like a pickaxe about to break. I realized I was basically his live-in dishwasher, and he was very comfortable letting me be. The quiet shift happened with one tiny stupid moment. My favorite pan. The one nice pan I owned before we moved in. I came home one night and I could smell it before I saw it. Burnt something. He'd tried to cook in it on high heat, scorched whatever he was making, and then just abandoned ship. The pan was half submerged in murky water, blackened bits glued to the bottom like obsidian. It stayed there. 2 days. 3. The water went cold and oily. He walked past it again and again, like it was invisible. That was the last little click in my brain. The moment my patience stopped being hopeful and turned into a quiet resolve. It was so clear. Gentle reminders weren't doing anything. He didn't want to deal with his own mess, and I had been very kindly shielding him from ever having to. So I decided to stop. Not with a fight, not with yelling. Just no more cleanup cavalry. If he wanted to live in later, I was going to let later finally arrive, completely. And in the next part, I'll tell you how I made sure he got to fully experience every single dish, every pan, every sticky counter, while I stayed perfectly calm, cozy, and just a little bit focused on that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. 7536. Story 3, The Great Dish Migration. So there I was, sitting in my cozy little corner of the apartment, watching my Minecraft character slowly strip mine a tunnel, and this very calm, very petty idea just sort of settled in. If he wanted to live in later, then I was going to deliver later right to his door like room service for consequences. I decided I wasn't going to wash a single thing. No revenge through yelling, no revenge through sabotage. Just a gentle, tidy relocation. Think of it like a great migration. But instead of birds flying south for the winter, it was plates and cups heading to their natural habitat, his room. I picked my moment carefully. One comfortable night when he headed out to another music-heavy party, the vibrations from the hallway speakers fading as the front door clicked shut, I paused the chaos in my head and let the slow Minecraft music and mining sounds help me drift into planning mode. The apartment was quiet, game sounds low, just that soft in-game soundtrack and my own footsteps on the real floor. Perfect. I walked through the kitchen and living room like a very polite archaeologist. Every dirty item that was clearly his got flagged in my brain. The specific superhero mug only he used. The pan with his favorite frozen meal still glued to the bottom. The big bowl he used for cereal at night. Forks, knives, spoons, cups, plates, pans. If I'd seen it in his hands, it was part of the expedition. I started stacking, slowly, carefully, no slamming, no clinking louder than necessary. I nested plates together, slid bowls on top, tucked utensils into a cup so they wouldn't rattle everywhere. I even rinsed off a few really sticky patches, just enough so things wouldn't fuse into one cursed sculpture. I wasn't trying to damage anything, I just wanted all of his habits gathered in one very undeniable place. As each section of counter cleared, I wiped it down. It felt almost meditative. In Minecraft, I was clearing out a little underground room, placing torches in a neat pattern. In real life, the kitchen counters went from sticky chaos to smooth, empty space. No more towers of dishes looming in my peripheral vision, just clean surfaces and that quiet, cozy feeling of order returning. Then came the migration itself. I scooped the stacks into my arms in manageable trips and walked them down the hall to his room. I didn't touch his personal stuff. No drawers, no clothes, no electronics. I just used open space, the desk he never studied at, the dresser top, a little patch of floor right by his gaming chair. I arranged everything like a weird modern art exhibit titled, "Behold, 2 weeks of I'll Get It Later." On top of the highest stack, I placed a small note. Nothing mean, nothing dramatic. Just, all your dishes were in the shared spaces, so I brought them to you. Please keep the kitchen clean. That was it. Standing there, looking at the sheer volume of plates and cups around his monitor, I knew there was no way he could ignore it. The next part of the story is where his reaction turns this quiet little migration into that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, and we'll get into that right after we dive into the next cozy stretch of Minecraft and stories to help you drift off to sleep. 7923. Story 3, a surprise science experiment and a clean kitchen. Welcome back to the channel, and grab your favorite blanket again, because this is the moment where the quiet little science experiment finally pays off. We've done the setup, we've stacked the data, and now we get to just sit back in our cozy Minecraft world and watch the results roll in like slow, satisfying block updates. My roommate came home that night in full post-party mode, still riding the vibrations of whatever music he'd been blasting in someone else's apartment. He dropped his keys, wandered into the kitchen, and just stopped. You know that stunned silence when your brain can't quite compute what it's seeing? That was him, staring at a spotless counter, an empty sink, and the faint lemon smell from the cleaner I'd finally been able to use on the stove. He actually opened the dishwasher first, like the dirty dishes might be hiding in there. Nothing. Checked the trash. Still nothing. For a second, I watched from the hallway while he just stood there, weirdly uncomfortable in a clean, quiet kitchen he didn't recognize. It was almost like the absence of chaos was louder than the mess had ever been. Then he went to his room, and that's when it hit. I heard the door open, then this confused little, "What the?" His voice kind of trailed off into horror. Every plate, every bowl, every fork, all stacked neatly along his dresser and desk. There was a leaning tower of cups next to his monitor, and I'd very carefully balanced one greasy pot right on the seat of his gaming chair like it was waiting for him to sit down and think about his life. There was still a faint smell of old pasta sauce in there too. Not overwhelming, just this gentle, undeniable reminder that all of this was his. He stepped back into the hallway holding one of his own crusted plates like it was evidence in a crime drama, and went, "Did you do this?" I kept my voice calm and comfortable, the same way I keep the Minecraft music low to help you drift off to sleep. I told him, yes, I just moved his dishes to his personal space since they were his. No yelling, no lecture, just facts. At first he got defensive, said it was a bit much, said I could have just left them, but he couldn't argue that they weren't his dishes, and he couldn't pretend I hadn't been quietly cleaning up after him for months. Over the next few days, the change was small but steady, like watching a slow build come together in this blocky little world. He started rinsing things and putting them straight into the dishwasher. Sometimes he'd still leave a mug out, but it stayed in his room instead of spreading across the apartment. The sink stopped being a permanent art installation. Weeks went by, and the kitchen stayed peacefully, consistently clean. I could make late-night tea without moving a mountain of plates. I could listen to the soft clink of a single spoon instead of the crash of a whole pile. Sitting there one quiet night watching Minecraft villages drift past on screen, I realized the revenge had never really been about punishment. It was about letting him sit with his own mess long enough to recognize it. Sometimes the kindest lesson is just handing people their chaos and stepping back, and the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served is knowing you don't have to carry it for them anymore. 8317. Gentle check-in. How your brain is winding down. And that's kind of what we're doing here tonight too. Just quietly handing your brain all the chaos it's been carrying and letting it set it down for a while. As these cozy stories roll on and the Minecraft world keeps drifting past, I want to do a tiny check-in with you. Just notice for a second how your body feels right now. Your eyelids might be a little heavier than when you first hit play. The colors of the blocks on screen might be starting to blur together at the edges, like the pixels are melting into soft little clouds. Maybe the mining sounds and the faint music have turned into background vibrations instead of something you're actively listening to. Thoughts that were racing earlier might be moving slower, like they're walking through a quiet apartment at night instead of sprinting through a noisy party. If you're new here, welcome back to the channel in advance, because this is the part where your brain starts to remember, oh right, this is where I'm allowed to switch off. I know, revenge and justice stories don't sound like they'd help you drift off to sleep, but the way we do it is slow and predictable on purpose. The same gentle footsteps through caves, the same soft placing of blocks, the same calm voice retelling how people used patience and receipts instead of shouting matches. That repetition is like rocking a mental hammock. Your brain loves patterns. When it sees the same cozy loop, walk, mine, place a torch, tell a story, breathe, it starts to shift gears out of problem-solving mode and into that dreamy, drifting state. You don't have to follow every detail of the stories. You can just let them wash over you, like low music in another room while you're falling asleep on the couch. If you need to, this is a perfect moment to adjust a little. Unclench your jaw. Roll one shoulder, then the other. Maybe stretch your toes or tug your blanket up a bit higher. If you haven't yet, grab your favorite blanket or pillow and make your spot as comfortable as humanly possible. Then let everything go still again, like your character just stopped moving to watch the Minecraft sunset. And remember, you are absolutely allowed to fall asleep at any point. There's no right moment to stop listening. You don't have to wait for the end of a story or for some big twist. If your eyes close halfway through a sentence, that's a win. I'll just keep wandering through this world, reading quietly, keeping you company while you sleep. Quick pattern interrupt before you fully drift. Stay just awake enough for one more tease. The next story is going to step out of the apartment drama and into a small town setting, with a school that looks perfectly normal on the outside. But let's dive into that in a second, once you've sunk just a little deeper into the mattress. 8634. Story 4. The teacher who underestimated the quiet kid, hook and setup, into a small town setting with a school that looks perfectly normal on the outside. The funny thing about places like that is how often the quietest person in the room ends up holding the sharpest receipts. Not loud, not dramatic, just politely devastating when the moment finally comes. So welcome back to the channel, and grab your favorite blanket while I wander through this little Minecraft village. The pixels are soft, the night sky is clear, and the only vibrations are from my pickaxe tapping gently at these blocks. While the game stays slow and cozy to help you drift off to sleep, let's dive into a school story where revenge looks less like a movie scene and more like a carefully highlighted stack of papers. In this one, I'm the narrator. Picture a kid who always sat near the window, not because of any deep reason, but because it was the quietest spot. I did well academically. I liked the rhythm of assignments, the predictable patterns of homework, the way numbers and essays felt almost like placing blocks in a simple build, but I was shy. The kind of student teachers forget to call on, who rarely raises a hand, who spends lunch in the library because it's more comfortable than the noise of the cafeteria. Most of my teachers were fine. Some were kind. But this story is about the one who wasn't. She was the favorite picker, the kind who had a front row of golden children who could do no wrong, and a mental list of kids she'd quietly decided were lazy, trouble, or not worth the effort. She liked the performance of teaching more than the actual students. Questions were interruptions. Clarifications were excuses. And for whatever reason, despite my grades, she slotted me into the cheater or slacker box almost immediately. If I aced a quiz, she'd narrow her eyes and say, "Interesting," in that tone that doesn't mean anything good. When I turned in an essay, she'd mark it down with comments like, "This doesn't sound like you," or "Where did you copy this from?" Never outright screaming, just this constant drizzle of doubt. There was a pattern. Group project? If my group did well, she'd praise the louder kid and ask me what, exactly, I'd contributed. Homework? If I finished early in class, she'd assume I'd rushed or copied and would randomly regrade mine harsher than everyone else's. Once, she handed back a test where I'd scored near perfect, then calmly announced to the whole room that some people clearly had outside help while looking straight at me. On the outside, I stayed quiet. No big confrontations. No dramatic speeches. Inside, though, it felt like someone slowly turning up the volume on a song you never chose. That low-level hum of unfairness that follows you home, into your apartment, into the late night when you're trying to sleep and your brain insists on replaying every little comment. So I did what quiet kids do best. I watched. I listened. I started keeping things. Not out of spite at first, but almost like building a calm little archive. Date on the top of each paper. Copies of assignments. Notes about what she'd said when she handed things back. Nothing wild, nothing confrontational. Just neat, careful rows of proof, the way you might line up chests in Minecraft. We're not at the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served just yet, but we're getting close. In the next part, that quiet stack of evidence is going to meet one very important school policy, and our favorite teacher is finally going to underestimate the wrong, lazy kid. 9038. Story 4. A pop quiz and a quiet plan. So there I am, sitting in class, doing my best impression of a quiet Minecraft villager just minding their little farm, when my teacher claps her hands and says we're having a fun little pop quiz. No warning, no review, just 20 questions slapped down on our desks. You could feel the vibrations of panic move through the room like someone had just triggered a creeper. She makes eye contact with me as she passes mine over. That same look that says, "Let's see how you do without your little helpers." I can almost hear the air quotes. I remember thinking, okay, perfect, let's dive into this, because I'd been studying. Slowly, quietly, the way you strip mine in Minecraft, one calm tunnel at a time. The questions are straight from the textbook and the homework I actually did. Definitions, short answers, a little problem solving. Nothing wild. I settle into this cozy rhythm, like placing blocks in a simple build. Read, recall, write. My brain finally feels comfortable, not scrambling to prove anything, just answering. By the time most people are halfway done, I'm double-checking my work. When she collects the quizzes, she gives mine this tiny, skeptical frown, like it's already misbehaving. Next day, she hands them back. A lot of kids are groaning. Then she stops at my desk. 98, she says. But her voice is flat. No good job. No smile. Just suspicion. In front of the whole class, she adds. Interesting improvement. Did someone go over the material with you? The way she says it, it's not concern. It's an accusation in a cozy sweater. A couple of kids glance back at me. I can feel my face heating up. I tell her I just studied. She tilts her head and says, Well, I'll have to make sure this wasn't a fluke. And then she moves on, already chatting warmly with my classmate about how, of course, she expected him to ace it. Same pattern. Same favoritism. Same quiet little stab. Something shifts for me right there. Up until that moment, I'd been treating it like Minecraft background music, annoying but ignorable if you turn the volume down low enough. But when someone basically calls you a cheater for doing what you're supposed to do, that's when the cozy bedtime story starts turning into a revenge arc. After school, instead of going straight home, I head to the counselor's office. I'm calm. I lay it all out, the way I'd sort items into chests in my apartment storage room. The missing points, the lazy comments, the way she praises certain kids and assumes I'm lying whenever I do well, the pop quiz accusation, no yelling, just patterns. The counselor listens, really listens. She even asks if I'd be okay looping in my parent. So later that night, we're all sitting at the kitchen table, the soft hum of night outside like low Minecraft music. I repeat the stories and my parent backs me up with emails they've seen and the weird report card comments. That's when the counselor suggests something simple but powerful. We can't record secretly, but we can document dates, times, what's said, and I can sit in on a class informally to observe. We agree on a plan. I'll keep a quiet log after each class. The counselor will visit for a routine observation. My parent will save every message. No drama, no shouting, just neat little rows of proof again. And the next time my teacher decides to spring something on me, she's not going to realize that this time, she's the one being watched. 94:38. Story 4. Letting the truth speak for itself. So the next day, while you're watching my little Minecraft character slowly strip mine through another cozy tunnel, real-life me is walking into class with this weird calm. You know that feeling when the music at a party suddenly drops and you can hear your own heartbeat? It was like that, but in my chest instead of the apartment walls. The counselor's informal observation happens a week later. She slips into the back of the room with a clipboard, smiling like she's just here to enjoy the lesson. My teacher does this tight little laugh and says, "Oh, we're just doing a quick in-class essay today." Of course we are. Perfect. Beforehand, the counselor had suggested something very specific. All of our tests would be printed with ID numbers instead of names. We write our student numbers at the top, turn them in, and then she collects them. Later, she and another teacher from a different class will grade them blind. No handwriting bias, no, I know this kid struggles, just words on paper. It's like turning the whole thing into one of those low-stimulation repetitive Minecraft tasks that help you drift off to sleep. Simple, predictable, and impossible to argue with. I sit there, pencil moving, trying to block out the classroom vibrations, and just focus on the prompt. I don't write like someone trying to prove a point. I write like I always do. Carefully, thoughtfully, a little nerdy. I turn it in and go back to being the quiet kid in the corner. A couple days later, the counselor calls my teacher into a small meeting. My parent is there too. I'm invited to sit in. It's oddly cozy, like we've all just spawned into the same Minecraft base to check our loot. The counselor lays out a neat stack of graded essays, still only labeled with numbers. She starts reading off the rubric scores. So, these top 3 essays all scored in the highest band from both graders. Strong thesis, sophisticated analysis, minimal errors. She flips one over, reveals the name that matches the number, and there it is. Mine. My teacher blinks. You can almost see the mental scramble. She tries to downplay it. Well, maybe this topic just suited you. But overall, OP is still behind the class in writing. One good test doesn't change that. Her voice has that brittle edge, like glass about to crack. The counselor doesn't raise her voice. She just gently nudges. This wasn't one good test. We anonymized 3 different assignments from the past month between classes. OP's work consistently ranked near the top. 2 other teachers, who don't know whose work they were reading, marked it that way. There's this long, soft silence. You could almost fall asleep in it. My parent speaks up, calm but firm. So if, anonymously, my kid is performing at the top, why does their report say, barely meeting expectations? It's not a gotcha. It's just a question hanging in the air. My teacher tries one more angle. Maybe they got help at home. Or maybe they copied ideas from somewhere. It lands awkwardly, like placing a block in the wrong spot. The counselor is ready for that too. She slides over the in-class essay from the observation day. This was written start to finish in your room. Under your supervision. You watched them do it. And it scored the same as the others. Her tone is still soft, but there's no wiggle room left. You can see my teacher's shoulders drop a little. The fight goes out of her. She looks at me, not quite meeting my eyes, and the counselor quietly says, I think an apology is appropriate, and we'll be reviewing grading practices going forward. I'll also be sitting in on a few more classes this term, just to make sure everything stays consistent. It's not dramatic. No one gets up and storms out. My teacher mutters an apology about misjudging me and promises to adjust my past grades to match the anonymous scores. It's awkward, but it's real. Walking out of that room, I don't feel triumphant. I feel seen. Like someone finally turned the lights up just enough to show what was always there. My effort, my work. My quiet little revenge wasn't about yelling or getting her fired. It was about letting the truth speak for itself. Back in our cozy Minecraft world, it's like finally stepping out of a dark cave into a clear, pixelated sunrise. Not a fireworks finale, just that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served in the most peaceful way possible. And the best part? I can finally sit down at night, grab your favorite blanket, and know that if I ever tell this story again, it has a real ending. A quiet one, but the kind that helps you drift off to sleep with just the tiniest smile. 100-04 Minecraft Nightwalk villages, lanterns, and low voices. So after that quiet little ending, I think we've earned a walk. Nothing dramatic, no big builds. Slipping out of the base into the Minecraft night while everything is calm. The sky's that deep, blocky navy, and the pixelated moon is hanging up there like someone forgot to turn off a cozy nightlight. I grab a lantern off the wall, and we step outside together. The light makes this soft golden bubble around us, and the rest of the world fades into gentle shadows. You can hear the faint music of the game humming in the background, just a few notes at a time, like it's being careful not to wake anyone up. The door closes behind us with that familiar click, and suddenly it's just you, me, and the quiet. We follow a little path of torches toward the village. Each torch gives off that tiny flicker, and as we pass, the particles float up like lazy fireflies. My footsteps crunch differently with every block. Soft on grass, sharper on gravel, a muted thud on planks when we cross a tiny bridge over the river. The water moves slowly underneath, catching the lantern light in broken lines. In the village, most of the houses are dark. Every now and then one has a single window lit, and you can see a villager tucked into bed, big nose, green blanket, completely out. Their soft snoring mixes with the occasional moo from a cow, or the little burp of a chicken settling in. Even the iron golem just wanders by like a sleepy security guard who knows tonight is going to be boring in the best way. If you're still awake, this is a good moment to let your eyes go a little unfocused. You don't have to watch every block. You can just listen to the footsteps, the distant water, the faint village sounds, and imagine you're the one walking this safe little path. No noisy party in the apartment upstairs, no weird vibrations in the walls, just a comfortable, predictable world doing its thing. Welcome back to the channel if you've drifted in and out and lost track of which story we're on. That's kind of the point. These slow walks, the repetitive sounds, the gentle turns through the village streets, they're all here to help you drift off to sleep, without your brain needing to keep score of every detail. Pattern interrupt. For the next few seconds, I'm just going to walk along the riverbank in silence. No commentary. Just the splash of the water, the crunch of sand, and the lantern swinging. Okay, if you're still with me, let's dive into something a little more nostalgic next. Our upcoming story is about family and childhood, and that moment when you realize the grown-ups aren't always the good guys they pretend to be. Don't worry, it still has that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, just wrapped in old photo albums, holiday dinners, and a very quiet, very patient kind of revenge. 103:25. Story 5, The Sibling Who Hogged the Console. Hook and setup, and speaking of quiet, patient revenge wrapped in family memories, let's shift into something a little softer, a little more nostalgic. While the Minecraft night sky drifts by, and the game music hums in the background like distant party vibrations from another apartment, I want you to picture an old living room, a chunky TV, and one very smug older sibling with a controller glued to their hands. Welcome back to the channel, and grab your favorite blanket if you haven't already, because this next one isn't about landlords or bosses. It's about that tiny kingdom called the living room, and the tyrant who ruled it with a plastic gamepad. This is a light-hearted story, but the revenge is still deliciously neat. The kind that gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served without keeping you up all night. The narrator says they grew up in a pretty normal, cozy home. One console, one old family computer, two siblings. In theory, they were supposed to share. In reality, their older brother treated the console like it came with his birth certificate. Every day after school was the same race. Backpacks dropped, shoes half kicked off, both of them sprinting down the hall to see who could reach the TV first. If the narrator lost that race, that was it. The brother would already be logged into his save file, volume just a little too loud, sinking into the couch like a king on his throne. The parents had tried to set rules. 30 minutes each, use the kitchen timer, no exceptions. But somehow, the timer would forget to get set, or it would mysteriously get reset right as it was about to go off. There were so many familiar little moments. The brother promising, "I'll save after this level, I swear," and then stretching that one level into an entire afternoon. The narrator standing there with a second controller, watching the sun go down outside while the game clock ticked up past 3, 4, 5 hours. On the rare occasions they got the console, the brother would hover, sighing dramatically, reminding them that they were wasting his progress. At night, when everyone was supposed to be winding down for sleep, the parents would do a last check, turn off the TV, say goodnight. But as soon as doors clicked shut, faint blue light would leak out from the living room again. The brother would sneak back in, fire up the console, and grind levels until way past midnight. Weekends were even worse. Whole Saturdays disappeared into boss fights and side quests, while the narrator sat nearby, pretending to read but really just waiting for a turn that never came. The thing is, there isn't any deep, dramatic trauma here. No screaming matches, no broken controllers, just that slow, simmering unfairness you might remember from your own childhood, where someone slightly older, slightly louder, always seemed to win. The narrator talks about it now with this warm, amused tone, like they're looking back at an old save file. And as we stroll through this peaceful Minecraft world together, I'll tell you how they finally gently tipped the balance back in their favor. Let's dive into the moment they realized they didn't have to fight for turns anymore. They could outsmart the console hog instead. 107:05. Story 5: A secret schedule and a hidden controller. So from that moment on, I stopped treating the console like a battlefield and started treating it like a puzzle. While we stroll past these cozy Minecraft hills together, imagine me in that little apartment, quietly collecting data, like I'm running some kind of low-stakes science experiment. No shouting, no dramatic showdowns, just observation. I began by watching my siblings' habits the way you might watch Minecraft day-night cycles. After school, instant power on, controller in hand until dinner. After dinner, back on until late at night, with the TV glowing and the faint music bleeding through my bedroom wall. Weekends were even worse, but there were gaps. Little pockets of silence when the vibrations in the floor stopped and the living room went dark. They always slept in on school mornings. They hated early alarms. They also disappeared every Tuesday and Thursday night for some club, and every Saturday afternoon there was a standing party at a friend's place. I started to map it out in my head, then on a tiny notebook I kept tucked behind my bed. It looked a bit like a Minecraft schedule. Farm in the morning, mine at night, explore when the mobs are gone. That's when I made my own secret schedule. I'd get up an hour earlier on school days, padding out to the living room while the apartment was still quiet and the sky outside was that soft pre-dawn blue. I'd play in those gentle, sleepy mornings, volume low, letting the console's home screen glow feel as cozy as this Minecraft village at night. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I'd wait 10 minutes after they left, then slip in for another peaceful session. But I didn't stop there. I needed a way to make sure those windows stayed mine. So when I finished, I'd carefully unplug the controller's charging cable and coil it up, tucking it behind a stack of old board games in the hall closet. Sometimes I'd unplug the power cable from the back of the console just enough so it looked plugged in, but wouldn't turn on unless you pushed it firmly back in place. Nothing broken, nothing damaged. Just slightly uncooperative unless you knew the trick. Suddenly, my siblings started having technical problems. They'd flop down on the couch, hit the power button, and the console would blink, then go dark. Or the console would come on, but every controller in the basket was mysteriously dead. Meanwhile, my own controller, fully charged and hidden in a shoebox under my bed, worked perfectly whenever my secret time rolled around. The confusion was almost comical, in a very gentle way. They'd call out, "Why isn't this thing working?" And I'd wander in, all innocent, suggesting maybe it was just getting old, or maybe the power strip was loose. I'd give it a little nudge, make sure it worked just enough to avoid suspicion, then quietly note how much time they lost to fiddling and complaining. Night after night, their frustration grew. My play sessions got smoother, calmer, and longer, like the steady rhythm of mining stone in this world. And just when they finally started to suspect that something strange was going on, one tiny slip on my part almost gave the whole secret schedule away. 110:42. Story 5 to Fair Play restored and a shared laugh. And that tiny slip was me getting a little too comfortable. One afternoon, I forgot to do my usual pre-show routine. I'd already broken the console for the day. The controller was safely tucked behind the old board games in the hall closet, and my sibling was in full sulk mode in the living room. I walked past them, absent-mindedly humming along to some music in my headphones, and went straight to the TV stand to plug the HDMI cable back in. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw their heads snap around. You know that moment in Minecraft when you hear a skeleton draw its bow and suddenly you're hyper-aware of everything? It felt like that. I froze with my hand on the cable. They just stared at me, then at the console, then back at me. "Wait," they said slowly. "So it wasn't broken?" I tried to play it cool, but it's hard to look innocent when you're literally holding the broken piece in your hand. They marched over, opened the cabinet, and of course immediately spotted the missing controller tucked behind an old Monopoly box. The mock outrage was instant. Hands on hips. Big gasp. A very dramatic, "You traitor." They did a little victory lap around the apartment with the controller held over their head like they'd just beaten the Ender Dragon. Then came the sulking. Not the scary kind. More like that slow, simmering pout where they flop onto the couch and declare that I'm the worst, in a tone that's about 60% annoyed and 40% impressed. The funny thing was, once they realized how simple the whole trick had been, they actually started laughing. It wasn't some complicated technical sabotage. No secret code, no hidden menu. Just an unplugged cable and a missing controller. The same way slow, repetitive Minecraft mining can help you drift off to sleep, the simplicity of it kind of took the sting out. That was my opening. While they were still half laughing, half pouting, I sat down next to them and said, "Look, I didn't do this to win. I just wanted things to be fair again." I laid it out gently. Shared schedules, set times, and actual breaks, so neither of us would spend the whole night glued to the screen. I even suggested we start a shared save and play together more, instead of treating the console like a prize in some endless party game we were both losing. To my surprise, they agreed faster than I expected. Maybe the tiny revenge had made its point without turning into a giant family fight. It was like those cozy revenge stories where the goal isn't to destroy someone, just to nudge them back toward basic respect. There was this warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, but in a way that still felt comfortable and safe. Now, years later, whenever we boot up a game together, one of us will inevitably say, "Careful, the mysterious broken console era might return," and we both crack up. It's become this gentle, nostalgic in-joke. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge is just a small, clever reset that lets everyone relax, share, and enjoy the quiet vibrations of a good game night. And speaking of cozy resets, let's dive into our next story, where the stakes are a little higher, but the payoff is just as soothing. 114.28. Deep Drift Segment, Mining, Repetition, and Sleep Cues. And speaking of cozy resets, let's actually slow everything way down for a bit. I know we've had that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, but right now, I'm going to give your brain something incredibly simple and predictable to follow. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. Just quiet tunnels and soft sounds to help you drift off to sleep. So, welcome back to the channel's calm side. I'm down here underground, starting a long, straight mining tunnel. No twists to keep track of, no maze to solve. Just me, you, and this gentle little rhythm. 1, 2, 3 steps forward, then the soft crack of the pickaxe as a block breaks. A tiny puff of pixels, a muted thud, and we move on. The stone right in front of us is that familiar gray, a little speckled, almost like concrete in an old apartment hallway. Every few blocks, the texture shifts just slightly, darker patches and lighter veins, but nothing wild. When a bit of coal peeks through, it's just a small sprinkle of black dots, like someone tapped a paintbrush there and walked away. Iron shows up as those faint, rusty freckles. Nothing flashy, just quietly useful. I'm keeping the pattern simple on purpose. A few blocks mined, a few steps forward, then a pause to place a torch. Listen for it. Inhale as the block breaks. Exhale as the torch clicks into place on the wall. Break, breathe in. Place, breathe out. You don't have to be perfect. This is just a gentle suggestion, like background music for your lungs. The torches land at regular intervals, little pockets of cozy light in the gray. The shadows pull back just enough to feel comfortable, but not so much that it feels bright or awake. We're not at a party. There's no rush. Just this slow procession of tiny glowing dots stretching down the tunnel behind us. If your mind tries to follow the layout, you can let that go. You don't need to remember which way we turned or how far we've gone. The world will stay here whether you're watching every block or already half asleep. Minecraft is very patient like that. These tunnels will just keep existing quietly in the dark, even if your screen is blurred into soft vibrations of color. Every now and then I'll take a predictable turn. Left. Straight again. Same rhythm. Same sound. It's like tracing the edge of a blanket with your fingers. Repetitive. Soothing. A little hypnotic. And if you're still awake, don't worry. We're not done with the stories. After this deep drift segment, I've got a couple more soft, satisfying revenge stories lined up, so you can grab your favorite blanket, let the cozy narration keep you company, and just let the night roll on in the background while you finally let go. 117.37, Story 6. The Neighbor Who Stole Parking Spots, Hook and Setup. So, as the Minecraft world keeps quietly ticking along in the background, and those soft little blocky vibrations just keep looping, let's gently shift into our next story. No screaming, no slammed doors, just a very calm, very legal bit of parking lot karma that might give you that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served right as you start to drift. Welcome back to the channel if you've made it this far without falling asleep. And if you're new, grab your favorite blanket, let the cozy music and the soft Minecraft sounds wash over you, and let's dive into a neighborhood story that proves you don't need to yell to set a boundary. Sometimes you just need painted lines, a lease agreement, and a stubbornly polite attitude. In this story, I live in a pretty ordinary apartment complex. Nothing fancy, just rows of beige buildings, a little patch of grass that pretends to be a courtyard, and a parking lot with clearly numbered spots. Each apartment gets one assigned space, My number is right there, big and obvious, painted on the asphalt in bright white. It's the spot closest to my staircase, and after a long night, it feels like a tiny luxury. At least, it was supposed to. Because there was this one neighbor who treated assigned parking like a suggestion instead of a rule. I'd come home from work late, headlights sweeping across the lot, already picturing myself in bed, and there it was, my spot, perfectly occupied by their car. Same make, same color, same little air freshener hanging from the mirror, like a recurring character in a very boring revenge movie. The inconvenience added up in those small, annoying ways. I'd end up parking way down the row, near the dumpsters, walking past dark corners with my arms full of groceries. On rainy nights, I'd be juggling bags, keys, and an umbrella that never quite opened in time, shoes splashing through puddles while my assigned paid-for spot sat there under their tires. Once, management even slipped a warning on my door about improper parking, because they assumed I was the one ignoring the rules. I started gently, a polite note under their wiper. Hey, just a reminder, this is actually my assigned space. A calm knock on their door one evening, me doing my best to stay comfortable and friendly. They shrugged, half laughing, and said things like, "It's just a spot," or, "I'll only be a minute," even though a minute somehow lasted the entire night. I wasn't looking for a fight. I like my sleep, I like my quiet, and I like my revenge stories subtle. So instead of yelling in the parking lot, I watched, I documented, and I let their pattern repeat night after night, like the same Minecraft path you walk over and over until you know every block by heart. In the next part, I'll tell you how a couple of emails, a time-stamped photo trail, and one very patient visit to the office turned that "it's just a spot" attitude into a very expensive lesson. 121.04. Story 6: Documentation, Patience, and a Towing Policy. So while I was walking that same path in the parking lot, you can picture the Minecraft gameplay doing the same thing on screen. Slow, steady loops. Place a torch, break a block, turn the corner. I wanted this to feel just as calm, even though it was a revenge story. So instead of yelling, I opened a little mental spreadsheet in my head and started quietly taking notes. First thing I did was document everything. Date, time, weather even. If I came home and found their car in my spot, I'd snap a photo with the license plate, the stall number, and my little parking permit clearly visible in the frame. If they'd left one of their snarky notes, I'd take a close-up of that too, like I was cataloging some rare mob drop. Over a couple of weeks, that cozy little collection of pictures turned into a full-on evidence album. One night after I'd parked in a visitor spot again and trudged up to my apartment, I sat down with the lease. You know that feeling in Minecraft when you finally open the wiki and realize there are rules and mechanics you never knew were there? Same vibe. Buried in the parking policy was this beautiful little line. Repeated violations, once documented, could lead to fines and towing at the tenant's expense. All it needed was dates, times, and proof. Exactly what I'd been gathering. I didn't storm into the office. I wanted this to stay sleep-friendly and calm, like the soft music under the game. So I printed everything, slid it into a neat folder, and walked in during my lunch break. I told the manager, very politely, that I just wanted the rules applied consistently. I laid out the photos in order, like a timeline of bad decisions. No raised voice, no drama. Just, here's the policy, here's the pattern, here's how many nights I've had to park somewhere else. They gave me that classic management smile, and a lot of, "we'll look into it," and "we'll talk to them." No real movement. So I went back to my cozy little documentation project. Every time the neighbor took my spot, another entry. Time-stamped photos, quick email to the office summarizing the incident, all in the same email thread so the chain got longer and longer. Like strip mining in Minecraft, repetitive, low effort, but incredibly effective over time. After a while, my email chain was basically a saga. You could scroll and feel the vibrations of their excuses through the screen. Eventually, it became harder for management to ignore my log than to actually do their job. One morning, the manager finally called and said, a bit stiffly, that they'd be posting a formal warning on the neighbor's door and on their file. Next incident, per policy, the car would be towed at their expense. And that's where things got interesting, because the neighbor did not take that bright orange notice well at all. 124.21. Story 6. A midnight tow truck and peaceful parking. That bright orange notice was basically the adult version of a traffic cone hat, and my neighbor wore it in their mind all week. They stomped around, complained in the hallway, and loudly told anyone who would listen that management was targeting them. Meanwhile, I just kept my little parking log updated and tried to help you drift off to sleep, with the cozy predictability of the rules finally kicking in. A few nights later, the real turning point showed up. It was late, one of those soft, quiet evenings where the apartment building feels wrapped in a blanket. The sky was that deep, inky blue, Minecraft night kind of color. I turned into the lot, already picturing my comfortable bed, the low music on my phone, maybe a little slow mining to wind my brain down. And there it was, their car, parked squarely in my spot again. Front and center, right in front of the posted tow warning sign. At that point, there was no adrenaline spike, no shaking hands, just this calm, almost sleepy sense of, okay, we're doing this. I took a quick photo with the sign in the frame, just like management had suggested, then pulled into the visitor spot across the way. I sent the email to the office and called the towing company number printed on the bright orange notice. The dispatcher sounded bored in that very reassuring way, confirmed the plate, and said they'd send a truck per the contract. Then I went upstairs, kicked off my shoes, and settled in. If you're watching the Minecraft gameplay right now, imagine that same energy. Slow, repetitive blocks, nothing dramatic, just soothing motions. I made some tea, dimmed the lights, and let the quiet of the night settle over the apartment. No party, no vibrations from bass thumping through the walls. Just the hum of the fridge and the faint whoosh of cars on a distant road. About 40 minutes later, I heard it. Not loud, not jarring, just the soft growl of a diesel engine easing into the lot. Chains clinked gently, metal on metal, like someone sorting through silverware in another room. I peeked through the curtains, barely moving them, and watched the tow truck back up with practiced, almost sleepy precision. Hook, lift, angle, gone. The whole thing took maybe 5 minutes. It felt like watching a calm Minecraft villager methodically harvest crops. Simple, inevitable, weirdly satisfying. The next morning, the show really started. I was heading out, coffee in hand, when I saw my neighbor marching around the lot, scanning every row like their car might be hiding behind a bush. Their face went from confusion to dawning horror, to that specific kind of angry red that says, "Consequences? For me?" They stormed into the office, voice raised enough that I could hear the edge of it down the hall. Management, to their credit, stayed perfectly calm. Later, the assistant manager told me they pulled up the file, showed the photos, the repeated written warnings, the signed lease, and the bright orange notice they'd crumpled and tossed. Every complaint they made just bounced off the documentation. The policy was clear. They had ignored it. Tow fee, storage fee, and a stern note on their record. After that night, something magical happened. My spot was just DAC, DASOA, waiting for me like a reserved seat in a cozy little theater. I'd pull in, park without stress, and head upstairs to my quiet apartment, ready to relax, maybe welcome back to the channel in my head as I watched some slow Minecraft and let the day dissolve. No more late-night arguments, no more blocked space, no more petty back and forth. And honestly, that's the warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served that I love the most. No screaming, no dramatic showdown, just the rules, humming along in the background like peaceful game music, doing exactly what they were designed to do. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a big flashy move. It's letting the systems that everyone agreed to gently tow the problem away, leaving you with open parking and a clear path home. Let's dive into the next story, where a different kind of neighbor learns that ignoring boundaries can get very, very expensive in a way they absolutely did not see coming. 12907. Story 7. The online troll who met the block button. Hook and setup. So while that neighbor was busy turning parking spaces into a personal obstacle course, our next character is doing their own kind of weaving in and out of boundaries, just from behind a keyboard. This time, nobody gets towed, nobody gets fined. Instead, the troll basically becomes their own punishment, all because I decided to respond in a way they absolutely did not expect. Welcome back to the channel, and grab your favorite blanket if you haven't already. I've got the Minecraft world moving at that same slow, cozy pace in the background. Just gentle mining, a little decorating, those soft block vibrations that kind of hum like distant music in an apartment at night. We're going to let this story help you drift off to sleep while we explore a different flavor of revenge, one that's almost hilariously low stakes, but still gives that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. So in this one, I'm not dealing with landlords or bosses. I'm just posting my art online, Little digital paintings, some Minecraft builds, sometimes short stories. Nothing wild, just the kind of stuff you share because it makes you feel comfortable and you hope it might make someone else's night a tiny bit better. And then there was this one user. You probably know the type. Never technically breaking any rules, never saying anything that would get them banned, but always there with the same energy. On every post, they'd show up with these perfectly calibrated, rude comments. Not, "This is awful," but the proportions are still off, but I guess it's an improvement from last time. Or, "Interesting palette, shame about the execution." They were like a mosquito in human form. Small, but impossible to ignore once you heard the buzz. They weren't cursing, they weren't slur-throwing, so reporting them felt like overkill. But they were always negative, always nitpicking, clearly trying to get a reaction without ever stepping over the official line. At first, I tried to be polite. I'd reply with things like, "Thanks for the feedback, I'm still learning," or, "I appreciate you taking the time to comment." I thought maybe they were just socially awkward, or maybe they didn't realize how harsh they sounded. When that didn't change anything, I tried the classic advice. Just ignore them. Let the comment sink under all the others, and focus on the people who were kind. But here's the thing about small digital annoyances. When you're already tired from the day, when you just want some cozy stories and a calm scroll before sleep, that one sour note starts to sound really loud. I'd hit upload, feel that little spark of pride, and immediately think, okay, when are they going to show up this time? It chipped away at the simple joy of sharing, one nitpicky sentence at a time. Eventually, I realized I didn't need a dramatic confrontation or some elaborate digital revenge plot. The tools were already built into the platform, just like those parking rules. And with one quiet click, I set up a consequence that turned all their effort into absolutely nothing. In the next part, I'll tell you how a single block button turned this persistent troll into their own private audience, and why that silence was the most satisfying outcome I could have asked for. 132:47. Story 7, Starving the Troll and Feeding the Algorithm. So when I said that one block button turned the troll into their own private audience, I meant it pretty literally. As I sat there in my cozy little Minecraft apartment, slowly placing blocks and listening to the soft in-game music, I realized something kind of funny about this whole situation. On this platform, every comment is food. The algorithm doesn't care if it's a compliment, a complaint, or a full-on tantrum typed at 2 a.m. It just sees interaction and goes, "Oh, people are talking here, let's show this to more people." That's when it clicked. This troll thought they were poisoning the well, but really, they were watering my little content garden. Not exactly the revenge they had in mind. So I changed strategies. Instead of doom scrolling my own comment section at night, rereading their messages and letting the vibrations of their words rattle around in my brain, I stopped opening anything that looked like it was from them. Same username, same tone, same predictable rant, scroll past. I let the comments sit there like harmless little data points. To the algorithm, they were just more cozy engagement. To me, they were invisible. Behind the scenes, I quietly set up filters and mutes. Nothing dramatic, no big public call-out, just a calm little digital boundary. Their comments could still register as activity, but I wouldn't see them in my main feed, and because I'd blocked them from seeing my responses, they never got the satisfaction of a reaction. From their side, it probably looked like they were shouting into a crowded party. From mine, it was like they'd been moved into a soundproof room. Meanwhile, I leaned into what you and I actually enjoy here. Slow mining tunnels, simple builds, calmer Reddit stories that help you drift off to sleep instead of spike your heart rate. While my pickaxe tapped away in a gentle rhythm, more and more positive comments started to rise to the top. People talked about how the steady Minecraft loops helped their brain quiet down, how the predictable patterns made them feel comfortable enough to finally fall asleep. And the troll? Nothing. No pinned rage, no public debate, no spotlight, just silence. Their efforts still nudged the video into more recommendations, which meant more kind viewers, more warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, and a stronger little community building itself one comment at a time. Over time, their messages slowed, then stopped. It's hard to keep screaming when the room never looks up. They disappeared, and the only thing that stayed was the cozy crowd that actually wanted to be here. So, welcome back to the channel. If you're listening on another night, grab your favorite blanket, and let's dive into what happened the first time someone tried to break that peace in real time and realized I wasn't playing their game anymore. 135:57, Final Wind Down. A last walk through the Minecraft world, so after all of that, After the drama and the receipts and the quiet little victories, we're back where we started. Just you, me, and this cozy Minecraft world. The party is over, the noisy apartment neighbors have logged off, the difficult bosses have closed their laptops, and the vibrations of all that tension are finally starting to fade. On screen, I'm going to take us on one last slow walk through the base. Nothing fancy now, just a gentle stroll past the farms, where the wheat fields are swaying in that soft, blocky breeze, and the animals are shuffling around like they're getting ready for bed, too. The music is low, the game sounds are soft, and everything is moving at that sleepy, predictable pace that helps your brain wind down. We'll wander through the decorated rooms we've passed a dozen times tonight, the little storage hallway with signs you can almost read, the cozy bedroom with the too bright torch that somehow still feels comfortable. Maybe we pause by the enchanting table, with particles drifting up like lazy fireflies, and let the camera just sit there for a moment while the stories you heard tonight settle in your mind. There were noisy neighbors who thought they owned the night, until a calm, clever plan reminded them that other people need sleep too. There were messy roommates who treated shared spaces like a dumping ground, and found out that leases and photos and timestamps can be stronger than shouting. There were difficult bosses who tried to steal credit or twist the truth, and ended up getting gently but firmly exposed by their own emails, their own trackers, their own patterns. The common thread in all of them wasn't screaming or smashing things, it was patience. Documentation. People choosing quiet, thoughtful revenge instead of a loud fight. That warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served without anyone having to become the villain themselves. It's like watching a redstone contraption click into place, every piece doing exactly what it was always going to do. As we climb up to a small lookout point above the base, I want you to notice if there's any tension you're still holding. In your shoulders, your jaw, behind your eyes. You don't have to fix it, just notice it and let it drain out slowly with each breath. The way the Minecraft sky slowly shifts from day into night. Here's the little pattern interrupt. You don't have to care about any of those stories anymore. Their problems are solved. Their bosses are handled. Their landlords are on the hook. None of it needs your attention. Your only job now is to rest. If you're still awake, let your focus drift away from the words and toward the gentle game sounds, the soft ambience, the tiny footsteps on stone. I'll keep talking for a while, but the sentences will get a little softer, a little sparser, like chunks fading into the distance. You can stay with me, or you can let go and finally drift off to sleep. 139:20. Outrow soft thanks, sleepy rituals, and future nights together. If you've somehow made it all the way here with your eyes still open, you're kind of a champion insomniac. But also, thank you for spending your night with me. And if you knocked out halfway through the very first revenge story and you're only hearing this in that half-dream, half-waking state, that still counts. You were here. You shared this cozy little corner of the internet with me. I know a lot of you let these videos run in the background, screen dimmed, volume low, just letting the soft Minecraft footsteps and quiet music blend into the room. That's exactly what I want this to be for you. Something familiar your brain recognizes as, oh, it's that calm voice again. It's time to slow down. Almost like brushing your teeth, turning off the big lights and then pressing play becomes part of your nightly ritual to help you drift off to sleep. So if it feels good, you can turn this into a tiny habit. Maybe every night you grab your favorite blanket, get comfortable in your bed or on the couch, and let the slow mining, the gentle block placing, and these stories tell your brain, hey, we're done with the day now. No drama, no loud party vibrations coming from the apartment upstairs, just predictable patterns and soft narration until your thoughts finally quiet down. If you want more nights like this, more cozy Minecraft worlds and Reddit stories keeping you company, you already know the quiet drill. You can subscribe so it's easy to find your way back here. Or leave a comment when you're awake about the kind of stories you like most. Wholesome karma, petty office justice, nostalgic school tales, or that slightly spooky but soft vibe that still lets you sleep. Your favorites really do help me decide what to bring next time. I read what you send. When a bunch of you say that workplace story gave me that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, or the nostalgic ones put me right back in my childhood bedroom, I pay attention. The feedback shapes the balance between calm, comforting, and just suspenseful enough to keep your mind gently focused instead of spinning on tomorrow's to-do list. So even if your eyes are closed right now and you're only catching every third word, the sentiment still stands. You're always welcome back here. Any night you need a calm voice, slow blocks, and a safe place to let go. This world will still be here, torches flickering, soft music humming, chunks loading slowly in the distance, waiting for you to respawn into another quiet evening. For now, I'm going to let the sounds of the game carry you the rest of the way. No more big twists, no more sharp turns, just a few more gentle footsteps on stone, a door opening, maybe a chest closing, and then silence. Whenever you're ready, you can come back, hit play again, and welcome back to the channel for another night. So from here, I'm just going to start talking less and letting the world do the work. You'll hear a few more quiet footsteps as I walk us back towards something cozy, maybe the little base or that calm stretch of water we passed earlier, and then the words are going to thin out like fog at the edge of morning. I know your brain might still be half following the stories, waiting for one more twist, one more warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served. But at this point in the night, you don't have to track anything anymore. You don't need to remember names, or apartments, or who got what kind of revenge. You can just let the sounds blur together until they're not Minecraft and Reddit and narration anymore. They're just soft, steady vibrations in the background of your room. You might hear me open a door, step onto a wooden floor, and then pause. Maybe I'll plant one last flower outside, or adjust a lantern so the light feels extra cozy, and then just stand there. No more stories, no more commentary, no more let's dive into another wild situation. Just the gentle shuffle of footsteps on stone, a chest opening once, maybe twice, and then quiet. From there, you can treat the rest of this video like a sound blanket. Low, repetitive, predictable, a little bit of in-game rain tapping softly overhead, or the hush of water sliding past the shore. Maybe a cow in the distance, or a villager murmuring far away like someone talking in another room at a sleepy party you left hours ago. Nothing sharp, nothing sudden, just enough to remind you you're not alone in the dark. If you wake up later and the video's still playing, that's completely okay. It's built for that. No jump scares, no sudden music spikes, no rage moments, just the same slow walking, the same simple movements, looping along while you roll over and sink back into sleep. Think of it like leaving a tiny lamp on in the hallway or a fan humming in the corner of your apartment. It's there to help you drift off to sleep again without thinking too hard about it. So, grab your favorite blanket, one more time, let your jaw unclench, and let your eyes get heavy. In a moment, I'm going to stop talking altogether and just let the game breathe. The volume will stay soft, the pace will stay slow, and there won't be any more changes in intensity, just this calm little world ticking away in the background. Thank you for spending the night here with me. Sleep well, rest easy, and good night.